How do you respond when things don't go your way? Typically, there's two ways of responding. If the situation is created by someone who is above you in a power structure, perhaps someone that you report to, or perhaps a client, the way that we would respond naturally is with resentment. If someone is below you in a power structure, perhaps someone who reports to you, if you're a parent, maybe your kid, the way you can respond is with irritability. Okay, so think about that structure there for a moment, that way of thinking. Here I am, I'm sitting in this dynamic of my relationships. Something goes against my will, and it creates either resentment or irritability in me. What that indicates is an ego issue in your life. And how can you deal with that? Because if you live your life with resentment and irritability dominating you, there is no way that you can be effective as a leader. Let me give you a couple of suggestions. Number one, you have to accept that you have emotional responses at times to situations, particularly situations that are out of your control. And let me promise you that there's only really one thing that is ultimately in your control, and that is yourself. Other people are not in your control. And so when you feel resentment, it's likely because you're in a power dynamic where someone above you has control over the situation. And so the only thing you can do in that circumstance is either accept the situation or remove yourself from the situation if at all possible. But let's assume that you can't remove yourself or you don't want to remove yourself. You must accept it. And the way to accept it is this. In the circumstance that you're facing, simply ask yourself, what is my duty? So let me give you an example. Let's say you're a project executive and you get handed a project to work on that you really don't want to work on, and yet you're the one who's given it to execute. If you're going to accept that, you have to embrace with all of your heart and your mind and your strength the fact that this project is yours and you're going to own it without excuses. And that then will help you to overcome the resentment that you have. And don't be surprised if the feelings of resentment don't go away right away. But the way that you can overcome them over time is simply by embracing that duty of yours, that role and responsibility that you have in that circumstance. Now let's talk about irritability. Someone beneath you in a power structure doesn't perform up to your expectations or your standards, and that can cause you great irritability. How must you respond in that situation so it doesn't hinder your leadership? What you must do is you must act with understanding. And understanding in this way, if someone is not performing up to the level that you're expecting from them, it's for a couple of different reasons. Number one, either they are not competent or they are unwilling. Okay? If they're not competent, then that's on you. And you have to think about, how is it that I can train them up so that they can perform that task in such a way that they do it to my standards and therefore I don't get irritated. And if they're not willing, then you must really ask yourself, do I have the right person in the right seat in this position? And if you act with that kind of understanding, then that will help you to overcome the irritability you feel when someone below you in a power structure doesn't do what they're supposed to do. Okay, so let me just summarize here. You don't want to spend your life in resentment and irritability. It's going to kill you. So you have to learn how to overcome that. In a power structure where someone has made a decision who's above you and you're feeling that resentment, you must accept the decision, or else you can always remove yourself out of the power structure. But I'm assuming, again, that you're staying within the power structure. Accept the decision, embrace your role and responsibility, and do your duty. When someone below you is not performing up to your standards and it's creating irritability for you, act with understanding. And if they're not competent, give them the training that they need. And if they're unwilling, then do what is necessary to put someone in place there that is willing. If you use this perspective, it can help you to overcome irritability and resentment when things don't go your way, and it will help you to be a much more effective leader. My name is Eric Anderton. Hope you found this insight helpful.